Hi, my sweet friends, and welcome to Crochet Every Day with Judy. We are reading from Little Women, and we're starting with Chapter 21, Laurie Makes Mischief and Joe Makes Peace. Laurie no sooner suspected a mystery than he set himself to find it out, and led Joe a trying life of it. He wheedled, bribed, ridiculed, threatened, and scolded, affected indifference that he might surprise the truth from her, declared he knew, then that he didn't care, and at last, by dint of perseverance, he satisfied himself that it concerned Meg and Mr. Brooke. Feeling indignant that he was not taken into his tutor's confidence, he set his wits to work to devise some proper retaliation for the slight. Meg, meanwhile, had apparently forgotten the matter and was absorbed in preparations for her father's return. But all of a sudden, a change seemed to come over her, and for a day or two she was quite unlike herself. She started when spoken to, blushed when looked at, was very quiet, and sat over her sewing with a timid, troubled look on her face. She feels it in the air, love I mean, and she's going very fast. She's got most of the symptoms, is twittery and cross, doesn't eat, lies awake, and mopes in corners. I caught her singing that song he gave her, and once she said John, as you do, and then turned as red as a poppy. Whatever shall we do, said Joe. Nothing but wait. Let her alone, be kind and patient, and Father's coming will settle everything, replied her mother. Here's a note to you, Meg, all sealed up, said Joe next day as she distributed the contents of the little post office. Mrs. March and Joe were deep in their own affairs when a sound from Meg made them look up to see her staring at her note with a frightened face. My child, what is it? Cried her mother, running to her, while Joe tried to take the paper which had done the mischief. It's all a mistake. He didn't send it. Oh, Joe, how could you do it? And Meg hid her face in her hands, crying as if her heart was quite broken. Me? I've done nothing. What's she talking about? Cried Joe, bewildered. Meg's mild eyes kindled with anger as she pulled a crumpled note from her pocket and threw it at Joe, saying reproachfully, You wrote it, and that bad boy helped you. How could you be so rude, so mean and cruel to us both? Joe hardly heard her, for she and her mother were reading the note, which was written in a peculiar hand. My dearest Margaret, I can no longer restrain my passion and must know my fate before I return. I dare not tell your parents yet, but I think they would consent if they knew that we adored one another. Mr. Lawrence will help me to some good place, and then, my sweet girl, you will make me happy. I implore you to say nothing to your family yet, but to send one word of hope through Laurie to your devoted John. Oh, the little villain! That's the way he meant to pay me for keeping my word to Mother. I'll give him a hearty scolding and bring him over to beg pardon, cried Joe, burning to execute immediate justice. But her mother held her back. Stop, Joe, you must clear yourself first. You have played so many pranks that I am afraid you have had a hand in this. On my word, Mother, I haven't. I never saw that note before and don't know anything about it, as true as I live, said Joe so earnestly that they believed her. If I had taken a part in it, I'd have done it better than this and have written a sensible note. I should think you'd have known Mr. Brooke wouldn't write such stuff as that, she added scornfully. It's like his writing, faltered Meg. Oh, Meg, you didn't answer it, cried Mrs. March quickly. Yes, I did, and Meg hid her face again. Margaret, tell me the whole story, commanded Mrs. March. I received the first letter from Laurie, who didn't look as if he knew anything about it, began Meg without looking up. I was worried at first and meant to tell you. Then I remembered how you liked Mr. Brooke, so I thought you wouldn't mind if I kept my little secret for a few days. What did you say to him? Asked Mrs. March. I only said I was too young to do anything about it yet, that I didn't wish to have secrets from you, and he must speak to Father. I was very grateful for his kindness and would be his friend, but nothing more for a long while. Mrs. March smiled as if well pleased, and Joe clapped her hands, exclaiming with a laugh, You are almost equal to Caroline Percy, who was a pattern of prudence. Tell on, Meg, what did he say to that? He writes in a different way entirely, telling me that he never sent any love letter at all, and is very sorry that my roguish sister Jo should take such liberties with our names. It's very kind and respectful, but think how dreadful for me. Meg leaned against her mother, looking the image of despair, and Jo tramped about the room calling Laurie names. All of a sudden, she stopped, caught up the two notes, and after looking at them closely, said decidedly, I don't believe Brooke ever saw either of these letters. Teddy wrote both, and keeps yours to crow over me with, because I wouldn't tell him my secret. Don't have any secrets, Joe. Tell it to Mother and keep out of trouble, as I should have done, said Meg warningly. Bless you, child, Mother told me. That will do, Joe. I'll comfort Meg while you go and get Laurie. I shall sift the matter to the bottom and put a stop to such pranks at once. Away ran Joe, and Mrs. March gently told Meg Mr. Brooke's real feelings. Now, dear, what are your own? Do you love him enough to wait till he can make a home for you, or will you keep yourself quite free for the present? "I've been so scared and worried I don't want to have anything to do with lovers for a long while. Perhaps never," answered Meg petulantly. "If John doesn't know anything about this nonsense, don't tell him and make Joe and Laurie hold their tongues. I won't be deceived and plagued and made a fool of. It's a shame." Seeing that Meg's usually gentle temper was roused and her pride hurt by this mischievous joke, Mrs. March soothed her by promises of entire silence and great discretion for the future. The instant Laurie's step was heard in the hall, Meg fled into the study, and Mrs. March received the culprit alone. Joe had not told him why he was wanted, fearing he wouldn't come, but he knew the minute he saw Mrs. March's face, and stood twirling his hat with a guilty air which convicted him at once. Joe was dismissed, but chose to march up and down the hall like a sentinel, having some fear that the prisoner might bolt. The sound of voices in the parlor rose and fell for half an hour. But what happened during that interview the girls never knew. When they were called in, Laurie was standing by their mother with such a penitent face that Joe forgave him on the spot, but did not think it wise to betray the fact. Meg received his humble apology and was much comforted by the assurance that Brooke knew nothing of the joke. "I'll never tell him to my dying day. Wild horses shan't drag it out of me, so you'll forgive me, Meg, and I'll do anything to show how out and out sorry I am." "I'll try, but it was a very ungentlemanly thing to do. I didn't think you could be so sly and malicious, Laurie," replied Meg. "It was altogether abominable, and I don't deserve to be spoken to for a month. But you will, though, won't you?" And Laurie folded his hands together with such an imploring gesture as he spoke in his irresistibly persuasive tone that it was impossible to frown upon him in spite of his scandalous behavior. Meg pardoned him, and Mrs. March's grave face relaxed. Everyone thought the matter ended and the little cloud blown over, but the mischief was done, for though others forgot it, Meg remembered. She never alluded to a certain person, but she thought of him a good deal, dreamed dreams more than ever, and once Joe, rummaging her sister's desk for stamps, found a bit of paper scribbled over with the words "Mrs. John Brooke," whereat she groaned tragically and cast it into the fire, feeling that Laurie's prank had hastened the evil day for her. We'll stop there and start next time with Chapter 22. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.